Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to welcome everyone to the first Polish and Hungarian Friendship Day of 2014. We would kindly ask that everyone rise for the national anthems of Poland and Canada, sung by the Polonial Choir of Edmonton, followed by the Hungarian national anthem sung by Martin Gala, accompanied by the violin of Laszlo Szajko Jr. We now ask Gabor Tokac to lead us in a blessing.
Well, I find today I'm in the right place because I was born in Hungary and my mother's maiden name was Bodotsky. Welcome, friends. God has been good to us, and it looks like we've been good to each other through the years. Life is as it should be, at least in this little corner of the world. Look around today. Our two families spoke different languages, dressed differently, ate some different foods, listened and danced to different tunes, nurtured and followed some different ideas. We cherished each other in our homeland, in our old homeland, and we each brought the treasures of our cultures to enrich each other in our new homeland. We speak the same language now. Our friendship and brotherhood has lasted this long, I think because we have come to see each other as brothers, as family. May it always be so under the watchful eyes of our Father. And may we not stop here, but may we cherish, enjoy, and treat all those from different parts of the world as our brothers, sharing our gifts with them and accepting theirs. This is kind of an unusual gathering of Poles and Hungarians because there's not a drop of red wine anywhere in sight. But, my friends, the next time that you have the chance to raise the glass of wine, let's have a toast to God in thanksgiving and to ourselves for staying and walking as family and friends. Amen.
We welcome several distinguished guests here today to celebrate the first annual Polish-Hungarian Friendship Day in the city of Edmonton. His Excellency John Szumlask, Honor Consul of the Republic of Poland in Edmonton. The Honorable Thomas Łukasiuk, the Minister of Jobs, Skills, Training and Labor, MLA, Edmonton, Castle. Anna Senta, President of the Hungarian Diaspora Council of Canada. Teresa Schlamfriga, President of the Canadian Polish Congress. President of the Polish Combatants Association of Canada. Eva Toldi, President of the Canadian-Hungarian Cultural Society of Edmonton. Attila Ovelényi, President of the Catholic Hungarian Association of Edmonton and members of the Board of Directors. Laszlo Szabó, Vice President of the National Alliance of Hungarians in Canada for the province of Alberta. Elena Boczko for the Canadian-Polish Historical Society of Alberta. Paweł Szewda, representing the Hungarian-Canadian Cultural Association of Calgary. We are equally honored to welcome the many guests and performers representing the various Polish and Hungarian groups in the city of Edmonton, including members of the Lvovich Polish Folklore Assembly of Edmonton, the Czardash Hungarian Folk Dance Assembly of Edmonton, the Polish Folk Arts Assembly, and honored guests from the University of Alberta. We are overwhelmed at the incredible response and support from these communities. Thank you to everyone who played a role in helping us realize our dreams of coming together to celebrate this special day.
Today's celebration of Polish-Hungarian Friendship Day was born with dancing. Dance is an incredible force that brings together people regardless of race, nationality, gender, or religion. Dancing has its own language, one that is universally understood by everyone. Since we began working in the Czardash Hungarian Folk Dance Ensemble of Edmonton as instructors almost 10 years ago, we have met and worked with dancers from many nationalities. Through various multicultural events in the city, such as Heritage Days and performances through the Edmonton Folk Arts Council, we have shared the common language of dance with groups from several ethnic backgrounds. Our group has had many members over the years that were non-Hungarian, but they came because we spoke the same language. Several of our members have been Polish, and it is through them, in this beautiful art of dance, that Polish-Hungarian Friendship Day was born for us. The relationship formed between our Polish dance members have blossomed into friendships that have endured the test of time. These friendships are such that the dancers have become a part of our folk family. Together, we have traveled through the mountains of Transylvania into the depths of Dimes. We have learned about the beautiful folk dancing traditions of the Great Plains of Hungary. And just last summer, I set foot into Poland for the first time and marveled at the beauty of Krakow and breathed the crisp air of Zakopane. Sharing in the same passion for Polish and Hungarian arts, March 23rd is an opportune time to come together to celebrate our historic past and to nurture our future. Our presenters have willingly volunteered to perform today because they too feel the same appreciation and the importance of cooperation between our communities. It is our hope that you will leave today richer in historical knowledge and filled with the same pride and respect we feel towards our Polish brothers. Polak, Węgier, dwa bratanki, i do szklanki. Lengyel, magyar, két barát, együtt harcol,
Our guest speaker, Stephen Drapaka, I apologize, I'm terrible with pronunciations here. Drapaka, am I saying it right? Relatively, is currently completing his master's degree in history at the University of Alberta, specializing in the history of Central Europe. His presentation, Polish-Hungarian Friendship Through the Ages, will guide us through the common and shared history of Poland and Hungary, and explore how the roots of these two great people have intertwined through the ages.
Okay, so I'd like to welcome all of you to the first annual Polish-Hungarian Day of Friendship. Witam wszystkich serdecznie na okazji Dni Przyjaźni Polsko-Węgierskiej. Szeretettel üdvözlök minden kedves vendégüket ezen a baráti találkozón. Köszönöm szépen. Dziękuję bardzo. Right. So, my first trip to Hungary was in 2002, and upon arriving at Budapest's Keleti Pályaudvar, or East train station, I was prepared to be struck with a considerable culture shock. As it had been explained to me in my guidebook, the Hungarian people, or Magyars, had arrived as a tribe into the Carpathian Basin from the steppes of Central Asia in the year AD 896, and had managed to make a home for themselves amid the sea of Slavonic peoples that enveloped the region. Speaking a completely different language, and often having to fight to maintain the survival of this isolated Magyar island, the Hungarian experience had been described by the writer Arthur Koestler as characterized by an exceptional loneliness. Arriving from Poland, where I had been studying Polish language and culture, I had a strong appreciation for those small nations of Europe that had been swallowed and subsumed by the great empires of the past, whether the Ottoman, Austrian, or Russian. In any case, I was eager to learn about the history of Hungary and the secret of how this small nation had managed to outlive all of those empires who had attempted and ultimately failed to conquer her. My group and I had decided to hire out a tour guide from a pamphlet taped up in the hostel in which we were staying. We met in Deák tér on the Pest side of the Danube, which I had not known at the time was named after Ferenc Deák, architect of the 1867 compromise that had resulted in a dual monarchy that shared power between Vienna and Budapest. The compromise was almost inevitable, as the Hungarians had demonstrated 2 decades earlier, in 1848, that they were willing to fight and die for the freedom of their country, to the great consternation of the Austrians who ruled over them. 1848 was an auspicious year that saw uprisings not only in Hungary, but indeed all throughout Europe. Ferenc Deák was himself quite mindful of the failed Krakow uprising against the Austrians in 1846, which had lasted 9 days and resulted in the deaths of at least 1,000 Polish patriots. Many of those who survived had crossed the border into exile in Hungary. Among the exiles was the Polish revolutionary Józef Bem, who had led troops during the 1830-31 November uprising in Poland. Following the defeat of the Poles, Bem had joined that illustrious family of Polish exiles in what was known as the Great Emigration, traveling to Paris and later to Portugal, assisting in the revolutionary cause and narrowly avoiding an assassination attempt by Russian agents. In 1848, Bem arrived in Austria and played a major role in the Vienna uprising, which was triggered by riots against Austrian troops marching en route to suppress the Hungarians. Although Bem survived the uprising in Vienna to eventually fight alongside the Hungarians, many of the leaders of the insurrection would be executed, foreshadowing what was to come later in Budapest. We boarded the metro, the Yellow Line, towards Hősök tere, or Heroes Square, which is located near the zoo and somewhat out of the way from the Danube Promenade, the fashionable Váci utca, and more central attractions. It was a cold and blustery day, foreboding and overcast, and as we quit the metro, the second oldest in Europe and the oldest on the continent, we approached a vast open space punctuated in the distance with a semicircular shrine to the Hungarian kings and marked with a tall column crowned with the figure of the Archangel Gabriel, bearing the holy crown of Saint István, or Saint Stephen, the first king of Hungary. Our tour guide was an older man, and I wondered if he had been around to witness the 1956 Hungarian Revolution against the Soviet occupation, which, as I later learned, had coincidentally begun at the foot of a statue commemorating Bemapo, or Grandpa Bem, which was located on the castle side of the Danube. I never asked our guide, though he was certainly aware of the great significance of this place for Hungarians, and which is why he brought us there first. Built in 1896 to commemorate the 1,000-year anniversary of the Magyar honfoglalás, or arrival of the Magyars into the Carpathian Basin, Hősök tere had, during the tumultuous 20th century, seen the proud faces of Hungary's kings completely covered in portraits of Lenin and red textile during the 133 days of the Hungarian Soviet Republic following the First World War. The Hungarians, however, following nearly half a century of Soviet occupation after World War II, would enjoy the last laugh as over 100,000 people, including many exiles from the 1956 revolution, would gather in the square to pay homage to Imre Nagy, a former communist politician who had sided with the people during the revolution and had paid for it with his life. For myself, it was evident that the Hungarians, like the Poles, shared a common history of martyrdom, revolution, mourning, and a thirst for freedom that helped unite these two peoples, separated by language and origin, into a brotherhood of common fate and destiny. This sense of a common destiny between the Poles and Hungarians, as two proud nations that each suffered frequent incursions on the part of aggressive neighbors, can be seen through the small ties that have been forged between them over the ages, as well as through their willingness to aid each other in times of need. One of the most famous examples of this bond occurred during World War II, after Poland had been occupied by Nazi Germany and over 100,000 Poles fled to Hungary, either to spend the remainder of the war, or, in most cases, as a temporary stopover on their way to continue fighting with the Western powers. Hungary, at the time, was under great pressure by Nazi Germany to cut off diplomatic relations with Poland and to turn over many of the fleeing Poles to German authorities. The Hungarians' intentions, however, were very much summed up in a letter to Adolf Hitler by Prime Minister Pál Teleki, in which the latter stated that it was a question of Hungarian honor not to engage in any aggression or acts of harm against the Poles. Another quote attributed to Teleki declared that he would rather destroy Hungary's own rail system rather than join the Germans in an invasion of Poland. After receiving papers from the Hungarian authorities providing them with legal protection, the arriving Poles received supplies, food, and even a monthly living allowance. One of the most important figures in the resettlement of the Poles in Hungary was Henryk Sławik, who was the head of the Citizens' Committee for Help of Polish Refugees. Sławik was originally a politician and labor activist who had been spotted by József Antal, the Hungarian Minister of the Interior, in a refugee camp shortly after crossing the Carpathian Mountains into Hungary, and who was later responsible for setting up Polish orphanages and schools throughout the Danube region, as well as saving the lives of Jews by placing them in communities run by Catholic nuns. In a reference to the time he had spent in Hungary, Sławek noted that, as our feet once again touch the holy ground of our motherland, many of us will look back fondly at the hospitality that we received on Hungarian soil, which took us in and sheltered us for so many years. We understood at that moment that this was not a foreign land, but the country of our eternal friends, who in difficult and dark hours did not abandon us, and courageously, in accordance with the dignity of this honorable people, helped us survive the most difficult trials of our spiritual and physical exile. Every layer of this people, great and small, remained our companions through our misfortune. We encountered many warm friends here, so many that one could not believe. We will not ever forget about them. The Hungarians were also there to assist the Poles at the end of the war. Amazingly, during the Warsaw Uprising, Hungarian troops nominally allied with the Germans provided substantial aid and supplies to the Poles, and there were reports of Hungarians switching sides to fight alongside their Polish brothers and sisters. This was accompanied with efforts on the part of the Hungarians to switch to the Allied side during the war. And indeed, the German authorities needed to warn the Hungarians multiple times due to the great likelihood that Hungarians would suddenly begin to fight alongside the Poles. A grave commemorating József Vonnig and 6 unidentified Hungarian Honvéd troops indicates that some Hungarians chose to fight alongside their Polish brothers during the Warsaw Uprising rather than honor the faltering commitment of the Hungarian government to the Axis powers. This connection between the Poles and Hungarians was not lost on our guide in Budapest, who repeated the famous words, Lengyel magyar két jó barát, együtt harcol szisza barát. The Pole and Hungarian are two good friends, they fight and drink together. As dusk slowly began to fall upon Heroes Square, he pointed out the statue of Ferenc II Rákóczi, who had been the first to lead a major uprising against Habsburg rule in 1703-1711, and who, coincidentally, had also been nominated twice to the kingship of Poland after having fled there once the Austrians had quelled the rebellion. This story, of course, reminded me of the most famous Polish king of Hungarian origin, Stefan Batory, who had presided over Poland during her golden era, who had won many victories over the Russians, and who is fondly remembered in many chronicles of the time. Our guide spent 20 minutes explaining that statue of Ferenc II Rákóczi, and as it became clear that there would not be enough time to devote to explaining each of the 14 statues on Heroes Square in detail, we boarded the metro for the Buda side of the Danube, the famous Castle Hill, or Várhegy, like the histories of Hungary and Poland, is deeply layered. And although the present-day edifice of the castle reflects the Baroque architecture of the Habsburg Empire, beneath the castle dome one can find the remnants of walls that stood against Turkish sieges, and perhaps even the remains of Matyás Corvinus's library, which had been ransacked and its contents dispersed by the Turks following the siege in 1490. The Poles had also fought some of their most famous battles against the Turks, and it was not a surprise that I learned that Poles fought alongside the Hungarians at the Battle of Mohács in 1526, after which the Hungarians were to lose their independence to the Ottoman Empire. About 3,000 Polish knights perished fighting the Turks in Mohács, along with 18,000 Hungarians. We emerged along the Danube embankment, across from Budapest's brightly lit Parliament building, a stone's throw from the castle, and near several monuments commemorating important events in Hungarian history, including the aforementioned statue of József Bem, which, crowned in wreaths and ribbons, reads, "Let the statue stand as a symbol for Hungarian freedom." Monuments and symbolic commemoration play an important role in strengthening historic memory of Poland and Hungary's historic ties. The statue of 2 oak trees commemorating Polish-Hungarian friendship in the Hungarian city of Győr was unveiled in 2006 and commemorated by Hungarian President László Solyom and the late Polish President Lech Kaczynski. The symbol of the oak tree alludes to a poem written by the Pole Stanisław Wurzel in the 19th century. The Pole and the Hungarian are like two eternal oaks, each of which grew into a separate trunk, yet whose roots extend deeply under the ground and have been bound up and fused in ways invisible. The well-being and vigor of one is the condition of life and health of the other. Perhaps it is the feeling of mutual trust and the sentiment of reciprocal aid and support among two nations sharing a very similar fate and historical destiny that has led to the illusion of two eternally intertwined oak trees. During the time that Wurzel wrote his poem, after all, 3,000 Polish legionnaires fought alongside the Hungarians against the occupying Habsburgs, including commanders Józef Bem, Henryk Dębski, and Mieczysław Woroniecki. The latter was killed in battle and commemorated as a martyr for Hungarian independence. Later, during the Poles' own battle to secure an independent Poland against the invading Bolsheviks following the end of World War I, the Hungarian government of Paweł Teleki transported over 100 million rounds of ammunition to Poland free of charge to assist the embattled Poles. Teleki, in fact, had wanted to send up to 30,000 troops to bolster the Polish forces, but was prevented from doing so due to the pernicious situation on the border at the time with neighboring countries. On March 12, 2007, the Hungarian government declared that the 23rd of March would be recognized as the Polish-Hungarian Day of Friendship. This day is commemorated in many ways throughout Poland and Hungary, with concerts, festivals, and exhibitions. The 2011 anniversary of the Polish-Hungarian Day of Friendship in Poznań was celebrated by Polish President Bronisław Komorowski and Hungarian President Paul Schmidt, and attended by over 500 people. Komorowski remarked that there are few cases in history where there exists such a long and peaceful coexistence between two nations, while Schmidt, in turn, declared that the Polish-Hungarian friendship is eternal. Standing atop the Castle Hill of Budapest, and gazing out upon the historical and cultural legacy of Hungary, a product of the past 1,000 years of history, one can gain an appreciation for the tenacity and wherewithal of those first intrepid groups of Magyars that settled among the Slavs of East Central Europe. And among those Slavs, it was the Poles, a nation likewise forged in the furnace of conflict that extended the hand of friendship to a fellow nation embattled in seeking to maintain its autonomy and freedom from foreign domination. Let us hope that the Polish-Hungarian friendship lives on for another 1,000 years.
Please welcome a very talented young lady from the Polish community, Maja Błuszyński, to the stage. She will be playing Czardasz by Vittorio Monti on violin. performer is Martin Galva. Martin Galva is a Sherwood Park-based actor, singer, dancer, director, choreographer, musical director, and producer. Martin immigrated to Canada when he was only 19, after being an artistic director of a very successful theatre company for 3 years in his native country, Slovakia. Martin is the artistic director of 2 one-way tickets to Broadway productions, and he was recently honored with the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal for his contribution to the art scene in Edmonton and surrounding areas. Today, Martin will sing Alia Fapads, or This Is the Moment, from the musical Jekyll and Hyde.
Eljött az óra, eljött a perc, ezerszer győzött le az élet, mégis felkelsz. Semmi nem számít, célot hív, csábít, ha figyel rád az ég. Tán csodát lát ma még. Eljött az óra, lég erre vár. Minek is bújnál, nem lehet, nem tudsz már, rád vár. E pillanat éltet, álmot ébred, 100 feladat vár még, nem is élhetnél másképp. Eljött az óra, új szabadság, legyőzni kételyt, félelmet, métejt, magacs mást. Eljött a perc, ami csak téged vár, út, ahol más még sosem jár. Így év telt, más mondhatná, kár volt. Tanuld, az sosem volt, de senki nem állt mellé, csak várott. Rád vár a perc, az utolsó próba, mindenre képes édes perc. Kezdet és vég, így együtt szép, tettél át szándék, miért tennél másképp? Változás, vagy lesz majd soha, mindegy, hogy csoda vár, vagy más. Félned nem kell, ez a végső határ, mégsem volt vég már, hidd állsz a célnál, megtennéd 100-szor.
Edmonton, under the artistic director of Oksana Ostashevsky, was created in 1999 for the purposes of performing Kador Shamanovsky's Harnashi with the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra. The choir has toured with their repertoire to festivals within Canada as well as abroad, Chicago and New York. Polonia is committed to being ambassadors for the Edmonton's Polish community by performing at yearly events in and around Edmonton and at various Polish commemorative events, such as Polish Independence Day, which is November 11, and Polish Constitution Day, May 3rd. This year, Polonial Choir celebrates its 15th anniversary, and today we'll perform 2 songs in Polish. piece today features the very dancers who've inspired the celebration. These dancers are members of the Wowicz Polish Folklore Ensemble of Edmonton, the Czardash Hungarian Folk Dance Ensemble of Edmonton, and the Polonaise Polish Folk Arts Ensemble. We would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to Ela Kapisa for playing such an instrumental role in putting together the dances for the Polish performers, as well as all the dancers for their dedication to this project. today. Please join us in congratulating both Patricia and Shaggy for putting on this absolutely outstanding show. Please join us for some home-baked Polish and Hungarian baked goodies, some coffee, some tea, as a gesture of our thank you for joining us here today. We'd like to thank all of our volunteers who donated their time and who provided us with these delicious cakes and desserts for this afternoon. As you enjoy each other's company, please take some time to visit the very back of the hall where our local Hungarian artist Tunda Vadi has displayed several of her beautiful paintings. Tunda is an active member of our Hungarian community and has displayed her art in many exhibits over Canada. One of her most permanent exhibits can be found at the Alberta Legislature, where there's a portrait of Premier Stelmach. You will also find a beautiful guest book there at the front of the hall. Please take a moment to leave us your thoughts for today's beautiful afternoon. Once again, thank you for coming today, and we look forward to seeing you at our second annual Polish-Hungarian Friendship Day 2015 in Edmonton. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.